Hi, this is Type1Cat, and today I'll be talking about continuous glucose monitors and insulin pumps, as well as some insurance issues I've encountered. In my depression episode, I spoke about getting a CGM and an insulin pump during my years running marathons, but that actually wasn't my first encounter with them. When I was first diagnosed with type 1, actually, I was pretty down about how many bruises I had from taking shots all the time, as well as how many manual finger sticks I had to take. And we looked into insulin pumps. So, fought for 9 months to a year to get approval, insurance coverage for my insulin pump and supplies, and put together a 1-inch binder with all of my blood sugar logs, food logs, insulin doses, lab results, doctor's notes to appeal and fight with the insurance company. And I believe that we were one of the first people in Hawaii to obtain approval for an insulin pump. And that was around year 2000, 2001. I stayed on an insulin pump for about 1 to 2 years. We actually had a lot of issues with it. And I know that young people can have a really good success with devices, insulin pumps, and CGMs now, but I did actually encounter quite a few problems. We tried a lot of different angles for the cannulas, for example, like 45-degree angles versus 90-degree angles, metal versus plastic, different lengths, and spoke with the rep, spoke with the certified diabetes educator, doctor, and really tried to troubleshoot, but I was on such little and low doses of insulin that we actually had to dilute my insulin, as people often do with very young children with diabetes. So I was very thin in gymnastics at the time. Sometimes would hit the site and then it would either bend or hit a capillary, and then blood would start backflowing into the cannula and tube, and the pressure from the amount of insulin I was taking was not enough to really deliver the correct amount with that backflow of blood. So my blood sugars were unpredictable, my insulin absorption was unpredictable, and it was really quite stressful. It was a bit of a mess, and we ended up switching back to shots after a year or two. And we felt pretty bad about not being able to use the insulin pump because we had fought so hard for it, but it just wasn't working. And I think because I had such a negative experience with the device, I didn't really consider going on devices or using devices again until about like 14 or so years later. But when I started running long distance, I was checking a lot. Of course, I always checked a lot anyway, but I needed to check my sugars to catch lows every 20 to 30 minutes, and for long runs that were 2 to 4 hours, I would end up checking my blood sugar sometimes 20 times a day. So applied to get the Dexcom G4 at the time when I was 24 years old, and still had quite a few issues with low blood sugars, of course, because I couldn't down titrate my basal for exercise. So I think it was for my last 2 marathons that I got it's the omnipod Eros or Original, and was able to suspend, of course, suspending fully people have to be very careful with, so as to not go into diabetic ketoacidosis. And I can talk about that more in depth later, but that really helped me prevent lows or minimize how bad the lows were when I had my long runs. And I didn't have too many insurance issues at the time for those devices, but actually encountered some insurance issues more recently when I switched jobs about 2 years ago. And I've had Kaiser, HMSA, and UHA through various times in my life, but switched back to an UHA plan for my new job. And there, for some reason, was issues with being able to bill the omnipods as a pharmacy benefit. And there is a difference between billing for supplies as either a pharmacy benefit or a durable medical equipment benefit, and the types of suppliers that I can use to ship the supplies to me. I can use the manufacturer directly. I could use a local specialty pharmacy, which I could pick supplies up from, or have them shipped directly to me, or a mail order pharmacy. And for some reason, it had to be billed as durable medical equipment and had to be received directly from the manufacturer. And I worked with my doctor's office, with my nurses, with the rep, and still ran into so many problems with the prior auth and the billing codes. I remember sitting at my desk after a long week of work. It was late on a Friday, and getting notified that my supplies were denied coverage, and just sitting there being so overwhelmed and crying because I didn't want to deal with it. Sometimes it feels like a part-time job, making those calls to figure out what went wrong, calling the doctor's office, calling my rep, calling the manufacturer, calling my insurance company. And so my mom found out about it and got involved. I signed release forms so she could help me out with that. And she followed up with everyone constantly so I wouldn't have to. But yeah, that was very tough. And for anyone who is looking into getting supplies or runs into insurance issues, I wish that it were easier, and I wish that I had better news. I feel like it is getting easier. For example, my doctor is on the board for HMSA and has pushed for not requiring prior auths for these type 1 devices. This should be expanding to other insurance companies, and I hope it will soon, so at least that we don't have to go through every year. But you know, I try to make sure I have everything on my calendar now to make sure that the prior auth is renewed every year, that any supplies or medications that cannot be on automatic refill are refilled, that everything's being billed properly. It can be a lot, and we just have to advocate for ourselves and keep fighting. With all of the issues that I've had, I still feel like the ways that being on the devices have benefited me are still worth the fight and the trouble. And I have actually been DIY looping for think 4.5 years now. One of my friends encouraged me to just try it because I was so nervous. I had been following some Facebook groups for maybe a year or more, but I had no experience with Macs, and I wanted to build the app in Xcode so it could be on my iPhone. I've been using an iPhone for a long, long time because that was the first phone operating system that was compatible with the Dexcom. And so I got a Mac and built the app, and that was pretty nerve-wracking to be my own IT support. But I really wanted that customizable, the customizable settings to have really good blood sugar control, and that just wasn't available. The algorithms weren't as good yet for the mainstream FDA-approved products, and I participated in the early loop studies, and now Tidepool is partnering with the developers to, now that it has been FDA approved, to release that app, so we don't have to build it ourselves, and that's going to be really, really cool. But I've probably rebuilt about 7 times or so now, rebuilding every year when the Apple developer account expires, as well as if I lost my phone, which has happened, or if there's any issues with the code that the developers find, then they let people know that they should update right away. And it took me a while to be comfortable and confident that I could do it. I have run into issues, and it's taken some patience to troubleshoot some of the issues that I've run into, but it's totally worth it. I can relax more. It's taken a lot of decisions out of my hands to be in a hybrid closed loop system where my pump and my CGM can talk to each other. On the original, I had a box, a little device called a Riley link that would convert the Omnipod original radio waves to Bluetooth waves, and now that I'm on the dash, I don't need that box anymore, and my phone can talk to my CGM and my insulin pump without that radio wave converter. So that's been really awesome. Some other issues that I've run into are actually adhesive allergies. I was very allergic to the Dexcom adhesive and tried putting Tegaderm underneath, and then finally switched to hydrocolloid patches. I would put a hydrocolloid patch down on my skin after cleaning with alcohol and using skin tack, and would just insert the CGM sensor straight through it. So no cutting holes or anything like that, so the adhesive wouldn't touch my skin at all, and that really worked. I don't need to do that anymore. I guess the adhesive formula has changed since that time, but I was using the hydrocolloid patches to prevent skin irritation and rashes for actually quite a few years. So in upcoming videos, I'll be talking about how I prepare for various workouts, how I make sure I don't go into DKA or have severe lows, and yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.